Hello.
Hi.
Coming to you through the electrical impulses of the internet, it's F That Noise. Featuring Mike Burdick, Keith Reeve, Jamie Klein, Pete Melia, and Steve Taylor. It's a brand new year, 2020, episode 6 of F That Noise. I am Keith Grieve here with what we affectionately call the boys. Steve Taylor. That was where you're supposed to chime in with your voice there, Steve. Pete Melia. Moving right along. Pete Melia.
I never know when you're done flapping those gums of yours.
Is that where you're going? Anyway, Pete Melia. Mike Burdick. And Jamie Klein. Dear God. And this is without alcohol, like episode 4 or whatever it was.
No alcohol
around here.
All right, a reminder, these episodes are brought to you by TrashmenMedia.com. For the latest Blu-ray and DVD reviews, including videos and interviews, check out Trashman Media at www.trashmenmedia.com, as well as on Twitter and Facebook. All right, so let's get right into it. The drive of the week. Mr. Klein, what do you have cooked up this week?
All right, this is going out to Pete right here. This is a classic film that we used to watch all the time back in grade school. This is from the 1979 Walter Hill classic, The Warriors. And this is a scene where David Patrick Kelly is looking for the Warriors, and he's at a convenience store, and he grabs some food, and he's not going to pay for it. So here's the scene.
Hey, what about the money you owe?
What?
The money you owe.
What?
Hey, what about the money you owe?
What? What?
Oh, God, he rolled that.
What?
Oh, God, it's hilarious.
It comes out of nowhere.
Seriously, that guy drives everything. I mean, I can't think of any examples. Help me out right now.
48 Hours.
Every movie that guy's in, he annihilates things.
There's that Bruce Willis movie. Steve, what was that Bruce Willis movie? He was Last Man Standing.
Yeah.
He plays the mobster.
Dreamscape. I know he drives something in that movie, too.
See, his favorite line of mine, though, wasn't a drive, per se. It's in Commando when Ray Don Chong turns him down. He calls her a fucking whore.
Yeah.
That just kills me. Kills me.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
Whoever has anything nice to say, I love it.
Yeah, no, that guy is 87.
Recently, he's been in...
like a handicapped Sean Penn or something.
Oh, Sue.
Jesus Christ.
I know. No, recently he's been in the John Wick movies. He has a small role in those.
Oh, nice.
And he's still alive?
Yeah, he plays the guy that cleans up all of the bodies. Like, they call him to clean up the dead bodies and make everything disappear. He's like a... What? Yeah, he's that.
Works for Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh.
What?
Oh. So how you doing, boys?
Pretty
Hey.
Everyone have a good holiday?
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah.
And happy birthday, Jamie.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I'm an old man.
Yes, you are.
Exactly 1 month older than Keith.
But not as
That's
old.
right. And
But not
now
as old
you're
as
only
Mike.
3 years younger than Mike.
Really? Are you sure? Who are you talking about? Which one was it, Steve? You sure? You settled on that one.
Listen,
Land the plane,
old-
Steve.
the
Land
old-
the plane.
The older I get, the more I get like my mother.
Oh, whoa.
Not like Brian Taylor being nude.
All right, so for this episode, the boys put our heads together here and came up with a topic that we feel could be quite entertaining, and that is, back in the old days, the prank phone call. And more to the point, how the era of the cell phone has probably killed that art form. Jamie, Pete, Steve, there's one story that stands out. I forget if everybody was around for it, but the infamous I don't want to say. I can't say a name here, but you know who I'm talking about. The infamous prank phone call that we.
You fucking with me?
Yeah, yeah, that one.
Oh, wow.
Yep, you knew exactly what I
would
was
need more
talking about.
details. I
Do
would
we need to
more.
explain what prank phone calls are to many of our younger audience members out there?
Maybe.
Do you know how many of the people that listen have no idea who the Jerky Boys were
Oh God, yeah.
That's
and how
right.
It's
big
funny
they
you say
were
that.
back in the day?
It's funny you say that because I was thinking about this topic and I was talking to my daughter. My daughter does prank phone calls all the time,
Ah, that's awesome.
and
How though?
yeah, and she what did you say?
How though? Because there's caller ID everywhere.
Because the kids know about prank phone calls and they know about apparently *67. You
That's
put
still
*67.
Yeah, that's
Star
still works.
67 you put before the phone call, and then it's completely, a private call. It comes up as the caller ID is something like private caller or something like that, or unknown, and then you can prank away.
What was *66?
Really?
Yeah, that's
Was that the-
if
the
you wanted
callback
to
number?
phone sex, huh?
Yeah, the
Jesus
Star
Christ.
66 might have been the callback.
Yeah, that was the auto. If somebody calls you and hangs up, you star
Yeah.
66 and it
Yeah, now
Right.
that's
That
the
was
one
our
thing.
greatest fear back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing I asked her. I said, can they still call you back even though they don't know your number? Like, can they do the callback? And that she didn't know, which kind of sucks because she's done a ton of them.
And keep in mind, Mike, how old's your daughter?
11.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, but
For
she's one of those badass 11-year-olds you'll ever meet.
Yeah, it's true.
But along
This is true.
in this vein, when you say prank calls, I have to remember sophomore year when the code to call, like every classroom had a speaker in it.
Oh my
And
god!
the
Oh my
code
fucking!
of how to call.
Oh, so wait a minute.
Yeah,
So you're
bag a
talking
little bit,
about
sure.
The call.
you're talking about like an intercom system as opposed to a prank call, right?
Yeah, it was the intercom system. So like every classroom had a speaker where he'd like, Mr. Burdick, could you please send Jimmy down to the principal's office, like crap like that. But the code
Oh.
got out, and
Yeah,
multiple
I
people.
know.
Yeah, the
Because
worst
we
thing
took it.
happened was I got a hold of that code.
That's right.
That-
Oh my god!
yeah, that was the worst thing. I got in so much shit.
What did you? So tell that story now, because we're all adults now.
Okay.
So
Well,
Well, that's a matter of
I mean,
opinion.
there's like
I
100
agree.
of them. I mean, I was doing it in every classroom, and I would run into the library, go into the back room where they had computers, and that was the new thing then.
Yeah,
well, they
right.
had computers. I would say the computers are new, but they were just getting them in, and everyone's using the computers and stuff like that. And I would go, and they had a phone back there. So I'd take the phone, you hit that code, and then you entered the room number, and you waited, and it did like a boop, and then you could hear like an echoey sound, and you could say whatever you wanted, and you hang up. So I was calling, making stupid remarks left and right. But the one that got me in trouble was this one teacher. He was totally clean shaven, and one weekend he came in with a beard, and his name was Mr. Ward.
it's all burdicked out.
And the guy had a stick up his choke. This guy sucks.
I
But
never noticed.
I went in and I had a few choice words about his beard and hung up.
You can't say no. You gotta say what you said.
I'm trying to remember. Honestly, would I say Ward, shave your fucking beard? Or something
Yeah, that's
like
that's the way I heard the story.
If I were a betting man, I would say that you absolutely said that.
That's exactly how I heard the
I
story.
think it was because I remember someone goes, "Oh, that's Jamie Klein," and I got in trouble.
Hey, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean to get you
Yeah,
in trouble.
right.
I don't know if anybody knew that was us doing that. Did that ever get out? Like, because that was going on for ages.
Again,
It did get out. I got pulled in with the principal talked, Mr. Adams talked to me and everything.
Oh,
And
Grizzly Adams.
like a true '80s man, I just denied everything because I knew you have no proof. There's no recordings. There's no-
again, if
anything
you're a
like that.
betting man, and it's the guys that are doing bacon down the hallway,
Jesus.
or in Keith's case, throwing books down when he gets kicked out of class, or
That wasn't until
Jump-
senior year.
or Pete jumping on the library wall up on the window just to get the reaction. I think
Who was stealing and breaking light bulbs? Was that Dale Lazaro?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it was Andy Pence or something.
Oh,
Hey,
I remember somebody had a locker full of light bulbs. they stole, and they were
allegedly.
just-
Allegedly.
Oh, yeah, they couldn't
Allegedly.
replace them fast enough. Yeah. every exit sign in the school was out, and yeah,
Yeah,
That's right.
I remember seeing
Commendable.
the light bulbs from the exit signs going out or missing.
Yeah, yeah.
Going missing.
That's
was a
why they
fine
were
effort.
going out. Jesus.
But I never got in trouble. So long story short, I just denied it, and that was it. I didn't do it again. I didn't want to, press my luck there. But
I got to tell you though, you must have collected those numbers because when I worked everywhere in Webster at one point or another, but I worked in Walmart, and you and Matt Oakes came in, and you found the code to the intercom there in Walmart.
oh yeah,
You
I did it with Wegmans also.
Wegmans also. I
Yeah.
think you
we
may
had
have done
Wegmans
it.
and Tops, and yeah.
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
may have done it at Hagedorn's.
There was a,
Just for everyone that's listening, all these places are like supermarkets. Obviously, everyone knows what Walmart is, but like these are like local supermarkets around our area.
when I was working in New Jersey for the Wegmans, there was a way to call the intercom of a store from your cell phone.
Ooh.
Like you had to be an employee to know the number.
That's
But-
insanity.
That's awesome.
They were like trying to figure out because like people would quit and whatever, and all of a sudden you'd be like in the store at night and you're like dude and some kind of insanity over the loudspeaker or whatever. And
I
it wouldn't
love
be
that.
anybody in the store.
I didn't know regular people had that kind of initiative. That weren't like us. And other people were going crazy too.
But like I used to do like to coworkers, like peers, I'd call them from other stores and pretend to be like somebody from IT, and I'd have them like taking apart registers, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Try this, and then like
Oh
start
Jesus!
breaking up like halfway into it, and all that kind of stuff.
But yeah, going back to prank phone calls, like I don't know, Pete and I have known each other since we were 5. I mean, we've been prank calling people back when we were like in grade
Yeah.
school. Pete, do you
If you
remember
got a prank phone call, chances are it might have been us.
Yeah, most likely it was. But the best was we're in our like pre-teens. Do you remember we just took a phone book and we opened it up and just started dialing numbers, just random, see who answers. And we got like a group of older girls. Now, we're about 12, so these girls were probably like anywhere from 16 to 17 years old. And of course, Pete and I just started saying the most immature, dirtiest shit to these girls. And they got into it. And you and I were completely blown away. It was like an 80s movie. We're like, oh my God, oh my God. And then we were looking at it, we're like, oh, what's the address? And we're like, oh, I don't know where this is located. We're like trying to think of like, what if we go on our bikes and try to find this address? Like these like young kids are gonna get laid,
Oh God!
Oh, it's hilarious.
That's awesome.
But we some of the
That was crazy because we really pushed the envelope and we just assumed they'd act like everybody else did and just kind of scream and yell at us and hang up or something. But no, they dialed it up even more and we just didn't know what to do.
yeah, that blew us away. You're like, what?
Wait a minute.
Yeah. You want to do what's my what?
And then you went through puberty.
Yeah, right. But oh God, the prank calls were the best. They were so much fucking fun, and doing that shit. And then like you you do it. The best was like when you would call back like later, like an hour or so later, and start doing the prank call again, just pissing them off. And it was. But if you got pranked, you're like, oh fucking motherfucker.
I hate to say it, but the people that would lose their marbles, oh, they were so much fun.
Whoa.
Oh, just great.
Oh, Pete, do you remember when I called the twins? The two sisters? Do you remember that?
Well, so
I'm
what's
trying
that?
not to say names.
Don't
but-
say names, but what's the story?
Well,
It's enough.
there's two twins, and I called and I got one of them on the phone. I said, "Hey, if I fucked your sister, would you feel it?"
Oh my god! Holy
You
shit!
never got an answer to that either. I don't.
I think the answer was basically, "Who is this?" and all that, and of course, my answer was,
There you go.
Clearly,
That's
we
right.
don't believe in science.
Oh, and then like this one guy. Okay, Keith was talking about this one guy. We can't name names, but there's this one guy who was just a complete dirt bomb, and He was a piece of garbage, this guy, but he had this weird voice that he sounded like this. Anytime he was mad, he would always want to fight people, all that stuff. And his line was, "You fucking with me?" He was like, "Kick your ass!" Like his voice was in and out. It was basically our version of Bobcat Goldthwait.
Just so you guys know, I don't think not naming names is helping all that much.
The best was calling this guy up and doing his voice and saying, "I'm you."
He would get so pissed.
Oh, he got furious. "Oh, fucking kick your ass!" I'm like, "Ah, fuck him."
Jamie, but you would even do like the little shit, like calling, like obviously before we all had cell phones. I remember a story of time where you called Mike's house and he wasn't home, and you told his mother to tell him Eric Shun called.
Oh, Jesus. Did I really miss that?
Yeah, you did that.
Did you get it?
'Cause I was-
Did you call back?
No,
I called him back, and we had a good conversation. I don't know what happened.
I was with Mike. I was with Mike when we went back to his house, and his mom said, "Oh, Mike, Eric Shun called," and I didn't get it. I didn't catch on. Mike just smirked and just kind of nodded, "Okay, Mom," and then she walked away, and I go, I don't get it." He's like, "It was Jamie."
So, Mom, if you're listening to this broadcast, it was Jamie.
It was Jamie.
Oh, Christ.
I don't know.
She's been asking me about that for years.
I bet. Just like Steve's mom keeps asking him about the Canadian driving instructor story.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No, but as you were saying, for those who don't remember, prank calling back in the day. I mean, the Jerky Boys were so popular, and they were a comedy group that would do prank phone calls, and they released a lot of albums.
But that started as an underground.
Remember,
thing.
it was an underground.
But then they actually got so mainstream, they made a movie. If you remember the Jerky Boys movie.
Yep. Right.
Like, pranking was so mainstream, and partially them and The Simpsons. That was the biggest running gag of Bart calling Moe's Tavern, and
Yeah.
But I listened to some of the Jerky Boys the other day, and I forgot how funny they were and how big they were. Like, I mean, it was underground, but it was massive.
I remember
Everyone in school had the tapes. Remember, we're borrowing each other's tapes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was insane.
And then they finally released it on
Tapes.
CD. But I mean, like, think about that in the grand scheme of life. These guys made prank phone calls and rode that shit all the way to a movie.
Yeah.
Never give up
And I
on
don't
your
even-
dreams, kids.
I can't even imagine the amount of money they made off of those tapes. I mean, they had to have sold just tons of them.
I think so. Yeah, they had a bit big. But I was thinking, we're talking about the prank phone calls. I mean, obviously people still do it because there's that TV show Crank Yankers
Yeah.
that's on Comedy Central and stuff. I don't think it's all that funny, but it's because you're on television. You can't really.
Yeah, you
say,
can't.
Well,
if you're
I don't
fuck
know
your
this,
sister, which-
but I don't know this, but I would think that if my daughter's doing so many, that it's got to be online. Like it's like they're like
Right.
people are recording them all over the place, right? Like
right.
See, I've
Yeah.
seen some modern ones, and the problem is the kids nowadays do not have imaginations,
Right.
and so it goes from trying to be funny to just being vulgar. And it's like vulgarity's okay, but you gotta some of the ones you were talking about, Jamie. You gotta have a purpose behind it, and then you can tell them to fuck themselves. You gotta be able to have a start to it. Now it's just like, you're fucking stupid, and hang up the phone. It's like, that's not fun.
Right.
well,
that's the
it's
thing, is
also.
that,
Okay. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, the telephone was like the main source of communication back then, and like you had no idea who it was, who was calling, right? You had to walk over, pick the thing up, right? You didn't really have anything at your disposal to say, okay, this isn't legitimate, or it is. If somebody could lead you on for a while, and we used to be able to do that for a long while to a lot of
Mhm.
people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could really have something there. We had some classics.
But
Oh,
that's a
God.
Now,
I still remember
that
calling
yeah.
Roberts Wesleyan. I remember calling Roberts Wesleyan and pretending I was upset by being there because it's a Christian college, and I acted like I was a Jewish guy and he had no friends or anything like that, and I tried to keep him on as long as I could.
oh my
And then
god.
I start then I just turned into a big pervert.
Oh, I wish I could have heard that call.
But Pete, you bring up an interesting point because it was easier in the old days because everybody just answered the phone without thinking. Now you if there's an unknown number or you star 67 it or whatever and it's blocked, you just don't answer it. You let it go to voicemail, see who it is. It's not the same kind of phone culture these days.
Mm-hmm. That's true, but the businesses still work. I would think, and
they have.
But I think that's what's that?
They have to answer the phone. So.
Yeah, they have to. But I would think that to that same point is that when you had the Jerky Boys as sort of like a guide, you look at them, they would clearly be answering like ads, and like they'd have a premise to call. Like the one that I'm thinking of is when he called for like to sell cars. So obviously there was a need for at some dealership to sell cars, and he answered some ad, and that's how. So he got someone that actually wanted to talk to him. And then he built it from there. So to Steve's point, it starts with a solid purpose, and then it works its way out, and then you can just like totally just house them.
Yeah, once you know you have them on the hook, you can just totally fuck with them.
What?
That's
I don't think I've ever
Losing it
too much. Yeah, and I'm not going to name names, but I know that when we were in school, there used to be a number of people that used to get it pretty good.
Oh, you mean like you had a target list for prank calls?
Not necessarily. It just really was somebody just popped into your head and was like, it's their turn tonight. Their number has come up.
And I don't think it was like ever like somebody to be picked on. I think it was always it was always like someone who had done something, and it was the way you kind of like address that, I guess.
Yeah.
And also the person, how naive the person could be too.
What's that? Jamie, what was the last thing you said? Never mind, it's over.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Doesn't matter. The hell with it.
I didn't hear it again though.
Glutton for punishment.
No, I was going to say, I still remember working at Hagedorn's, and they gave us a list of everyone's phone number, in case you can take my shift, you can take my shift, all that stuff. Oh my God, I remember calling this one guy. He was a few sandwiches short of a picnic. All right, so I called this one guy up. Yeah, can you believe it? And I called him up, and I told him I tried to disguise my voice and sound like one of the owners, Dale Vance, and I fired the guy, and I don't remember him ever coming back.
Shut up! What? He did not.
God, I swear to God,
I never knew this.
Because soon after I quit Hagedorn's, almost right away. So I think it was maybe a week or two. So I may have fired the guy. I don't know. He didn't work a whole lot. He was like one of these dopes that would work like once a week or something like that.
You fired the guy.
But he didn't even ask why, which was great. I'm sorry.
Not going to work here anymore.
I just basically we're gonna have to let you go. I'm like, yeah, it's not enough hours for everyone.
Nice office.
Oh my God.
And the best is I was by myself. I was like,
you're just doing it for your own satisfaction.
Yeah. What else was I gonna do?
Jesus Christ. You were a sadist.
Was?
Yeah. Stupid point. All right, we got about 5 minutes left in this episode. Anybody watch the Golden Globes last night?
I did.
I unfortunately did.
I haven't watched an award show in so long.
It's not worth it.
Well, I watched it for only one reason. That was Ricky Gervais, and he had a couple funny lines, but for the most part, it was awful.
That monologue, everyone's making a big deal about that monologue. And there were some funny parts, and I liked that he made fun of everybody, but for the most part, I was like, huh?
It died. Like, he had some
love
jokes
that monologue.
completely died.
Oh, see, I laughed my ass off at that monologue, but it was more mean-spirited than anything, but
yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
No, I thought he was funny from beginning to end, but I also found it really hypocritical because he's in that same group that he's mocking out. and he's basically talking. I mean, he managed in the middle of all those jokes, telling people off because they this and that his series had been on Netflix and he's got a new one coming up. I mean, he was basically mocking everybody. Oh yeah, you're thinking of yourselves and don't preach and do all this stuff. But then he did the same stuff. The whole statement was a political statement.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a lot of the stuff he said though. If you watch the previous like 2 that he hosted, the "I don't care" is my last time. He said that all those last 2 also. It's like he kept reusing shit he said in other ones, and that's what kind of turned me off because I loved it like when he first did it a couple times ago, but then now it's like, dude, it's fucking old. Come on, it's gotten old. Yeah, everyone knows you're gonna say that. I don't give a shit. And I don't care, and you're all pampered and pompous and all that. I heard that before. I want something. He's a funny fucking dude. Like I want something different.
Oh, he's always funny. But yeah.
He's got a weird, like when he's not like I watched the British version of The Office, and when he's in character, he's amazing. But when he like his stand up, and even like in the Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee episode, he's got I don't want to say weird, but you almost don't know whether or not he's taking offense or clearly he's a comedian and he's got thick skin. I get that, but it's something about his facial expressions and his delivery. It's just like you're not quite sure how to take some of the things that come out of his mouth. And I got that vibe with the monologue last night.
I think if you look at any artist, any creative person, and I would dare say especially comedians, you're talking about people that use their pain to in terms of what they do. And if you have any doubt about how much pain, and you talk about like him taking offense or whatever, if you have any doubt of how much pain this guy's going through or what he's putting into his work, you watch the show that he's talking about on Netflix, this Afterlife. Anyone see it?
No.
I saw it.
The whole premise is the guy is in love with his wife, and before the show starts, she's died of cancer. So he's resolved himself that he's just going to kill himself. So before he kills himself, he's just going to do whatever the fuck he wants. So he's gonna tell people anything that he's ever wanted to tell them, and he's gonna do anything he wants to do. And it's only like 8 episodes, but it's so freaking 7. It's so like it's funny, but it's really dark, and it really gives you an insight into what kind of guy this guy really is in real life, because it was all him. He created it. I don't know, for money.
That was good.
No, the only positive I took, I was happy Once Upon a Time in Hollywood got so many. Like I'm happy Tarantino. I love that. That movie's just.
His speech pissed me off.
Who's Tarantino's?
Yeah, he's such a fucking douchebag now.
He is a douchebag.
He's always been a douchebag.
He is. He's just gotten worse and worse.
No, he hasn't.
I want to thank myself, and this is dedicated to some guy that no one, not even I, have heard of, and it's just such a fucking douchebag. I'm just
you go back to after we're done. Go back and look at some of those interviews after Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. He was doing the exact same shtick,
Yeah, but it's like he's at an award show, just starting to get more. It's old now. It's kind of like what you guys were saying about Gervais. That's how I am with Tarantino. I'm just sick of this guy. I'd rather him just make a good movie.
He did this year.
Rather him just come up, accept his award with his dog.
Hateful Eight. That was a couple of years ago.
No. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
You didn't like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Jamie?
Oh, I think frigged.
Oh, I loved it. It's one of my favorites.
I wouldn't say
it was the most disappointing film of the year.
Wow.
What'd you
say? I did not care for it. Most disappointing film of the year. No, I couldn't stand it.
Holy shit! The only thing I can say bad about it was too long. Well, the rest of it was beautiful.
You're absolutely too long.
I saw on the internet there's a director's cut coming out next year that adds almost an hour.
Jesus, come on.
Jesus Christ.
All these fucking directors, all these movies, every fucking movie now is going to be like 3 hours long now.
Yeah, it is
everything.
Ridiculous.
It's
fucking comedies now are like 2 hours. Like, and
they're trying to compete with TV series and stuff. Yeah, it's hard to tell a story.
Well, they think
TV has gotten better than movies now.
Well, let's be honest. Like Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese, they make long movies because they can.
Right.
And they don't have to. They don't have to edit anything. To tell you the truth, their movies, like Keith just said, they're doing the cut that's longer. Their movies are originally longer than that, but they know that they can create 3-hour movies and people will watch them and they'll be nominated for all the awards. They're not, but I still think that both those movies have such, we've talked about The Irishman already, but I think both those movies have a quality to them. They just need to be, I think Tarantino's editor fell off a cliff a couple movies ago, but like, no, she literally did. Sally Menken fell off a cliff, and she did. And ever since then, I'm not making a joke. And ever since then, his movies.
I know you're being serious. It's just the way it came out.
I didn't know. I thought you were making a joke.
I guess I said it in a funny way, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's ever since she died, he hasn't cut very much at all.
She got Doug Kenny.
Oh my God, they killed Sally.
No, but I told Audrey this, and you guys know I used to watch Golden Globes and Oscars and all that. This officially is the last award show I will ever watch.
I said that.
I'm officially done.
Look, to me, it's about the movies, and I was mad a long time ago when they started giving certain movies awards, and it just blew my mind when movies that you couldn't even sit through were getting Best Pictures, and they nominated that Pig movie or whatever the hell happened.
And Forrest Gump winning instead of Pulp Fiction.
No, but Tarantino actually said he's glad that happened. But anyway, that's another story. But the idea is that it's about the movies for me, and this one was awful. I think this one was awful because more than anything, the mood was just a certain way. It doesn't matter where you fall. And I don't want to get into politics, but it doesn't matter where you fall in the spectrum. The mood of everybody was shitty, and it was from beginning to end. It doesn't matter whether they're Hollywood elite or whether it's the guy that's hosting the show. Everybody from beginning to end was in a really bad mood, and
Really?
it was just coming off as like nobody wanted to be there. No one. I mean, the people that won the awards were of course happy, but it didn't matter. It just was it brought me way down. Normally,
Yeah, you could tell every actor that was from Australia. Like if you saw Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, they looked. I mean, of course, their mind is elsewhere because Australia's all on fire. They looked miserable through the entire thing. I don't think they laughed once. They never smiled, and it's because they shouldn't even have fucking gone. Like they obviously were 7 as hell.
Well, it's because they didn't get a nice prank phone call from me or Pete.
Whoa.
Right. Full circle.
Good segue.
Yes.
All right, and I think.
Wait before we finish. Joaquin Phoenix is freaking out of his freaking mind.
Oh, he's crazy.
Oh yeah,
He's
he's
crazy.
Awesome.
Gone.
Total bad.
I loved his speech.
Good for him.
Loved his speech.
All right.
Yeah, I heard a little about that. I didn't see it though.
Watch it. It's
Sounds interesting though.
It's must-see crazy TV. Well, that'll do it for episode 6 here of F That Noise. We'll be back next week with all new mayhem. Follow us on the socials. Go to trashmanmedia.com. See you next week, folks.
Beard.
That's pretty much it.